I have 7 o'clock. We will call the town board meeting for March 14th, 2024 to order. First item on the agenda is the approval. Patrick, we have any changes?
Mr. Chair, no changes from staff. However, I would point out to the board that you were emailed additional supplemental information to item 7A for this evening from Evan, I believe. I forwarded that to you this morning. No changes to the agenda, though.
Board have any changes?
No.
Okay, I need a motion to approve the agenda.
Move to approve.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
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 All opposed? That motion carries. Item 3 is approval of payment of the bills. Steve, you sign off.
I did. Move to approve payment of the bills.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? All right, item 4 is approval of minutes of February 21st, 2024. The only correction I saw is we have Steve Ruzek as present, which he was not.
He was not.
No.
Anything else?
No. I saw this.
So I will move to approve the minutes as amended.
A second?
Second.
Yeah,
You
second.
moved.
Well, then you have to second.
You have to
because he
second.
wasn't
I
here.
can't. I wasn't here.
I'll second.
All right.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right, item 5, consent agenda. I think we should pull item 5A. That's for our annual meeting. I think if nothing else, to make sure our audience is aware that that's coming up next Tuesday. And then if the board wants to look at the agenda and if they have any changes. Board have any other issues with the consent?
No. I will move to approve the consent agenda as amended.
I'll second that.
Motion's made and second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? All right, moving on. 5A is, the agenda. Patrick, do we
Yes.
know if we're gonna have any officials there?
Yes, actually, we had confirmation by the county attorney's office today that he will be in attendance. But that's the only one that we do have confirmation.
Nobody from Sheriff's Department?
Not yet.
No commissioner
Not yet.
or local representatives?
Not yet.
Did you reach out to him?
We sure did. No, we did. That's why we got word back from John. He went out, or they went out in the same notification, so.
So March 12th, which is next Tuesday, is our annual town meeting. This is when the residents have a chance to actually vote and have any input on our levy for the following year. That way, this is very unique to the township because most cities just go ahead and pass their budgets and you don't get a say. So this is one of the advantages of living in a township. You gentlemen have anything else?
The only thing I'd add is if we have, our winter decides to return and it's bad weather on that day, there is a backup option, and I think it's for Thursday of the same week, is it not?
Correct.
Yes. So, and it would be here.
I was just going to point out, it is going to be at this location, not Otter Lake School like it has in the past.
All right, if there's no further comments, I need a motion to approve item 5A.
I will move to approve item 5A, the annual meeting agenda.
I'll second that.
Motion's made and second. All in favor, say aye.
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 All opposed? All right, moving on. Item 6 is old business. This is an open board position. Our board supervisor, Scott McEwen, is moving out of the township, so the board has to, we can't say replace you. We'll find someone to sit in for you.
Yeah. You don't have to smile so much about it, Scott. So, Mr. Chair, we did have this on the agenda for the last meeting. The board chose to wait till Supervisor Ruzek returned from Hawaii. So we're looking for a directive, or staff is looking for a directive as to how the board would like to approach this search. The township attorney did let us know that we do need to post it or do not.
You don't need to, but,
But we should.
We should, yes.
Now, do we need to have interviews or no?
You don't need to have
But we
interviews.
should.
You should.
Okay. From that, I would hand it over to you how you'd like us to proceed.
Well, I believe that we probably should post to see what people are interested, so we can look at potential qualifications and make it as transparent as possible for the position till we have, it's temporary till the election time. And for those that do not know, Scott's term isn't up for
The end of the, well, let's see,
2026, well, 2025, the end of 2025, so he and I are on the same schedule, so you'd have to, this would be a temporary or appointed till there's a general election.
Which is in November,
Yes,
and we will, yep.
yeah.
Well, one of the questions I had was if, maybe for the attorney, can Scott sit in on those interviews?
Actually, they're public anyway, so
Yeah, they are public.
we could,
Well, as a board member, though.
No, not as a board member.
Okay.
Well, yeah, not as a board member, because the statute does indicate that the selection committee consists of the remaining supervisors and the town clerk.
All right, so what are you thinking, Patrick? Just post it on the website, or?
oh, we've got a variety of places. We'll post it beyond that. But yes, probably be a half a dozen different.
So what time frame are we looking at?
Well, Supervisor McCune notified me that it will probably be May for your departure, correct?
Correct, and I'm thinking, I was kind of targeting the May executive meeting
As your last,
as the last one,
okay.
which I think, well, I guess not, never mind, May executive meeting.
Okay, so what I would suggest is tomorrow we post this. Actually, what I'll do is I'll come up with some language for the posting, send it on to legal for a review. Upon his approval, we'll post it for 30 days.
And just so we're clear, whoever is selected will only serve to fill, whoever's elected next November will simply serve out the remainder of Scott's term,
2 years.
2 years. It's not a whole new 4-year term. It's just the remainder of the existing term.
Existing term.
And they have to run again in 2 years.
Exactly.
And
Plus, one other point, whoever since your position is open too, I believe, Steve.
yes,
Whoever apply or whoever, files a notice, the affidavit of candidacy, has to indicate which position they are filing for.
Well, that would be the case this November, because I'm up for a reelection too. And then there'd be a vacancy, so there would be 2 spots in November.
Yeah, because there are 2 spots,
Right.
you have to pick one.
Okay.
So then that's something we'll deal with staff. But just so we're clear, anyone who does plan on running, you have to indicate which spot you're running for.
So I guess our intent was initially when we started this discussion was we were going to post it here as soon as possible. But I mean, if we've got an extra month with Scott, do you want me to hold off for another 30 days before we post it? Or do you want me to post it for 60 days and then have interviews? Or what's the board's pleasure?
I would think by April, if you have it out by April 1st, that gives us the month, 30 days for them to apply. That gives us the month of May to interview and make the decisions. Because really the person that's selected by you and the board chair and myself, they have to be sworn in anyway at the first board meeting in June then, correct?
The first board meeting, they have to sign their oath 10 days after appointment.
Okay.
Maybe we should do it a little
You really,
Sooner.
it's going to be a little,
wonky.
here's my recommendation.
Okay.
You can hold the interviews while Scott is still serving, but you should not appoint anyone until after Scott's position is affirmatively vacant.
So if can he officially resign his position after the executive board meeting in May?
Yes.
And then maybe we affirm or give the oath to the selected candidate the first meeting in June.
Yes.
And that date is the 3rd of June.
Okay.
So we have to have our selection confirmed and here for confirmation on the 3rd then.
Yep.
Of June. So whatever dates.
Well, actually, you don't really have to bring a formal before the town board. You simply have to, the 3 of you simply appoint them, and that's it. But the appointment should not be made until Scott has actually tendered his resignation.
Doesn't that include taking the oath of office?
That's 10 days after they are appointed.
When's the executive meeting?
Well, typically, it's on the 4th Friday,
Yeah,
but
but
that's just before Memorial Day.
Memorial
and
Day.
Historically, we move it up, and I don't know if that's,
That actually might help.
so that would be then May 17th.
Yeah, that might be the best way to do it. Because then we've got plenty of time. We've got the 10-day period before the first meeting in June covered. And we can do the oath of office on the 3rd of June.
We definitely have to have someone in place in case of have any assessment hearings.
Oh, yeah.
That requires unanimous votes.
All right. Is that a plan?
Okay, so just, we talked a lot of things. So tell me what is our schedule here? We're
I
gonna-
would suggest that we post for 30 days, beginning the 15th of March. Get as many applicants as we can and schedule interviews first week of May. And the board can decide who they would like at that point. Scott will resign his position officially on May 17th. Oath of office will be given to the chosen applicant the first meeting in June 3rd. How's that sound?
You just have to stay on. You're creating way too much problem.
And no one's gonna fight you. You can stay on as long as you want, as long as you're here.
So you're going to put a notice out through various sources to advertise for people that may be interested?
And the wording, I'll run past Chad to make sure we're covered legally.
Okay.
Actually, no, I'll send it to Ed too. Ed can do it as well.
We need a formal motion on this, Chad?
I think it's just a staff
Just a
directive.
staff directive.
Okay.
Do you
All right.
Do you have that directive?
Yes, yes, I
See
do.
you taking any notes.
There's no need
What's
for a
that?
motion because it's all statutorily determined
Okay.
procedure, so.
All right, if there's no other discussion, moving on. Item 7 is a public hearing. This is for Gordon Nelson at 5241 West Bald Eagle Boulevard. I need a motion to waive the hearing.
Move to waive the reading as
Reading.
properly published?
Second?
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? That motion carries. And I need a motion to open up the public hearing.
I'll move to open the public hearing.
Second?
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Who's going to handle this?
That would be myself. Good evening. I am also here with Janine Clancy. She can introduce herself.
I'm Janine Clancy. I'm a program director at TKVA and a senior planner.
She will be here to help me out answer any questions or any questions you guys may have, teaming this effort tonight. The variance, we're calling the Nelson variance. It is for, as you mentioned, 5241 West Bald Eagle Boulevard. The primary portion of the property is just over a third of an acre. There's also a northern portion that's only 0.06 acres, giving lakefront access onto Bald Eagle Lake. It's 80 feet wide and in the R1 district, which is single-family residential in use. They are requesting a variance from the zoning ordinance to expand a garage. The proposed extension would be 5 feet and 6.5 inches from the property line, whereas your ordinance requires 10 feet. The addition would be 286 feet. It would extend 22 feet south from the existing garage, 13 feet wide, and it would not encroach into the side setback any further than the existing garage. The applicant stated the following, as seen on the screen in their application materials. The expansion is for residential use only. It would allow space for auto and miscellaneous storage. Items stored in the garage would allow for a cleaner lawn environment. The high water table would prevent the ability to build a basement. The layout of the lot prohibits the possibility to meet side setback requirements. It would not alter the character of the neighborhood and may be an improvement to their property value, they state. There is some history with the property already. In 1984, there was a variance granted to a previous owner that allowed a single-car garage be built 8 feet from the property line, so encroaching only 2 feet. In 1992, a variance was granted to this current owner, the applicant tonight, allowing the garage be expanded to 3 feet and 2.5 inches from the property line. The town board in 1992 approved the variance with the findings of too high of a water table for a basement, the fact that it was an undersized lot, and that similar situations existed in the neighborhood. The too high of a water table we'll address a little bit later. The wording is a little bit different. It's more understood as a storm elevation level. And we will also discuss the undersized lot as it does meet current ordinance lot requirements. On the screen, you can see the diagram of their lot and their existing buildings. The orange outline is that garage addition they're proposing. The setback lines are dashed there. A little bit more zoomed in, you can see that the addition is 5.5 feet from that property line, and the existing garage is 3.5 feet from the property line. As I mentioned, the lot is not undersized according to your current ordinance. It does meet all of the lot area requirements as well as the width. The building inspector had noted that the basement would not be able to be built on site due to the 100-year 1% storm elevation level being within 3 feet of the potential basement, which confirms the finding of, as stated prior, too high of a water table, but it's now understood differently. The staff evaluated the request, and it appears to be in harmony with the zoning ordinance and with the comprehensive plan. The proposed use is reasonable. The storm elevation is a unique circumstance not created by the applicant. The lot appears to have space to build the addition further east from the property line, though impervious surface coverage may be increased to above the 25% maximum, and mature trees would be removed. This will be addressed in a later comment. The request would not alter the character of the neighborhood, and it does not appear to be motivated by economic considerations alone. The Planning Commission reviewed this request at their January 25th meeting. It was discussed thoroughly, with the discussion centered around practical difficulty, drainage, fire hazard, etc. The Commission recommends approval of this variance request with the conditions we will review shortly. It was a 3-to-1 vote with 1 abstention. The supplemental material that you received this morning was a memo from the architect who was representing the client with the client at that Planning Commission meeting. She wrote a formal memo addressing the questions posed at the commission, including how will drainage from the new addition be kept on site, what precautions will be taken to mitigate the fire hazard between adjacent structures, and addressing the question of, are there other locations on site where the garage could be? Could it be located further from the side lot line than currently proposed? The town board tonight has the following options: to approve the variance with or without conditions, to deny the variance with findings, of course, and you could also table the request for further review and study if necessary. If the board finds criteria are met, staff recommend the following conditions. The applicant shall be permitted to build the proposed garage addition as shown on the plans submitted to the township on December 5th, 2023, and reviewed with this request. The applicant shall remove existing concrete located between the proposed addition and west property line and shall install gutters on the proposed addition to mitigate potential issues with drainage and runoff. The applicant shall acquire all other necessary permits and approvals for their proposed project. They shall comply with any applicable local, state, and federal rules and regulations, and they shall pay all fees and escrows associated with the project. Depending on your finding tonight, we do have resolutions for approval and denial prepared for you. The applicant also does seem to be here. If you'd like to ask any questions of the applicant, now would be the time.
All right, well, before we open it up for public comment, Scott, questions, comments?
I really don't have any questions.
Steve?
Just so I'm clear, this, as it sits today, I mean, it meets all the requirements of the variance that was granted, so nothing is, up to this point, has changed. And what you just said is that they could move it to a different, over a little bit further? What, is that what you were saying? Without
That was a topic of conversation at the Planning Commission. They were considering, Janine, would you show the zoomed in version of the plans? They were considering moving it eastward so it would fit within the setbacks, which would be up on the image. The architect addressed this in the memo you received, addressing that it may not be feasible due to
Mature trees, it said.
mature
relocated.
trees and also the internal building of the garage. I believe it was stated that there are like stairs or utilities. That would be a question for the applicant.
I think I'd have to have a little more clarification on that. Are there utilities? Is there a utility variance along between those two neighboring properties now? It's existing?
Utilities that are existing between the two?
Yes. Is there easement?
utility
There would
easement?
be easement there, would there not be?
Well,
There's not a current utility easement between the two.
depends on when this was originally platted.
Oh.
You know, when it was originally platted, if it was fairly new, they would have put in easement
They would have,
lines. And
this
that's
is old, so.
That's part of the reason for the setbacks, but these buildings are too old for that.
Okay. I'll pass for
Nothing else, Scott? All right, what is the distance between the new proposed garage and the existing house?
I don't have that measurement explicit on the drawings. I believe it is. Ooh, that'd be a great question for the applicant.
Okay.
I apologize.
All right, well, I'm just curious because obviously if it's, you can't use financial issues to move that thing, so if it's an issue of just internally changing some mechanics or roof lines or whatever, that's not a reason to grant the variance. So I was curious whether you do that or you relocate the building in the backyard. I know taking trees down is not our favorite thing either.
No.
We're losing so many now with Emerald Ash Borer that, but again, when we had this moratorium on variances, what, 10 years ago now, Chad?
Yes.
The terms of hardship were basically thrown out. It is now considered reasonable use of the property. So when you have reasonable use, that means you can, if you can stay within the guidelines of the township, then you can use the property as you see fit. When you've got a standard lot, and now you're coming in for a variance to add on a garage, you're not reasonably using the property as the township was required by this variance. I think I was on the planning commission back when this variance was probably allowed for that two-stall garage. And the reasoning because the board was concerned about trying to get our township residents a double-car garage versus a single. So we were making accommodations for residents to give them a little bit of fudge factor to those property lines to get a double car. And I'm sure that's why that variance was granted, because it's so close to the property line. Otherwise, we wouldn't have allowed that either. It's a lot that fits the right size, but with a single car, we wanted to get people to get a two-car. So I'm sure that's where that variance came in. But now, all of a sudden, we're talking about more garage and still adding a variance where you should be 10 feet off the line for the next garage. So the board at that time, I think, was trying to make amends, but now we're being asked to make amends again just for another stall in this garage. So that's my little bit of a heartburn on this application, especially when there is room to put it somewhere else, or depending on if this whole building could be moved towards the existing house, you still meet the 10 foot on the corner, and then there's no need for a variance. With that, any other questions or comments?
That's a good
All
point.
right, then I would look for a motion to open it up for the public comment.
I'll move to open the hearing up for public comment.
Second?
All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed? I know the applicants are here. If you'd like to come on up, get your name and address for the record.
Gordon Nelson, 5241 West Bald Eagle Boulevard. I'm the owner. It's my wife Cindy. Contractor Paul Husnick, I'm sure you all know. Part of the problem with relocating, as was mentioned earlier, is you give up some green space. So you have some issues with the permeability rule. And I don't have access anywhere into the garage from any parts of the property besides that. And I'm not actually making the garage wider. I'm actually going deeper. So as far as you won't see any information, or you won't see a roof line from the road. It's pretty well hidden back there from the backyard neighbors. And actually the setback is even less than my original one that I received. So there really isn't much room to play with as far as maneuvering around for that garage.
How much room do you have between the existing house and the proposed new garage?
Well, right now, the actual garage with a 10-foot setback requirement, I'm in 3 feet, 2.5 inches, and the revised would, I'd be in 5 feet, 6.5 inches. So,
No, I'm saying, that right now, the existing house, if you were to put that garage where you want it, what's that distance between those two? I don't know if I can find a laser pointer.
well,
The house and the new garage.
Yeah, between the house and the new garage, the new proposed garage. They've got a line there, but they don't give us the distance.
you're talking from the setback now?
No,
No.
no.
Talking about, if you want to put that new garage up, how far away will it be from the house? I know it's attached to your existing garage. How far will it be from the house?
Yeah,
I'm guessing it's 8, 10 feet?
I don't see that on my drawings here, so there's a,
Where I'm going with this is if it's possible to move that garage to the east to get that 10-foot setback and still clear the house, is that, I know you run into roof lines and there's some issues, but
well, I mean, we did look at, part of the discussion was, with the original planning commission, was if there's any way you could look at it to where you can move it further east. And we did have that looked at, and that did give me, I would be 7 feet setback off that line, so that I was able to gain another foot and something off of that. I do have a copy of those measurements and the new measurements on that, if the board would like to have that.
so you're saying there's only 3 feet, there'd only be 3 feet between the two buildings then? I'm,
Hey, Cindy Nelson, 5241 West Bald Eagle Boulevard. It's not on the drawing. Paul helped me here. There's actually a utility door into the garage. So if we go over too far, we're going to be in front of the utility garage. And also inside the garage, we have a bump out of our laundry room that then goes into the garage. So if we move this way too far over, then that disrupts and we can't get into the garage with that utility door. And where the garage is, it can't come all that far over because we have a bump out within the garage, which was something that hasn't been on any drawing. We did discuss it last time, but I don't think we were maybe clear about exactly what was inside the garage that made that also a reason. Paul, I don't know if you have any other comments, but I didn't describe that very well.
Measurement 6 feet
Which measurement?
between the garage and the existing house.
I don't know, was that helpful? Is that what you were kind of looking for? Or?
6 feet.
I've just, obviously, I haven't been, I drove by the front of it, but I didn't go around back. But if it's at all possible to do this garage without a variance, it makes this board.
Well, I wouldn't, I mean, I can't do it without a variance, because I wouldn't be here if I could. I mean, I know it's 10 foot, so I know that. So it will not work.
Lines don't work.
Right now, in fact, I'm surprised the very first variance was this small. Even with undersized lots of 60-footers, we're allowing that 10-foot to go to 5-foot because of the undersized lot. Well, but now when you have a full, I don't know, what's the width of this lot? Is it 80?
80 feet.
Yeah, so you've got more than enough room on that property for a standard house and a 2-car garage. So I struggle with giving a variance for a 3rd stall when we've already given a variance to get the 2 stall, and that was kind of the board's priority, to at least get people 2 stalls. Now we're asking for a variance to do a 3rd. And again, I have to harp on this reasonable use of the property. We don't grant variances just because you want a bigger garage. It's got to, if you can do it and not have a variance, then it's this board's struggle to give you that variance. And I don't know, Chad, if you can maybe just, the recap of the moratorium is how that was explained.
Well, what the moratorium you're talking about, Mr. Chairman, was that there was a case out of Minnetonka that changed the definition of what, okay. prior to that case, there was, the basic standard was reasonableness. And the Minnesota Supreme Court reinterpreted that, saying reasonableness is not what the statute says. It said, I forget exactly what it said again, but it basically, it ended up with a much more stricter definition of what a variance, what a variance is. Regulations changed quite a bit. So the legislature, the reason we adopted the moratorium is the legislature was looking at that case and looking at the old interpretations of the statute and decided that they had to amend the statute to reinstate the old interpretation. So the interpretations that existed, I think the case was Krummacher, I think it was 20, oh boy, I think in 2012, I could be wrong, I'm pretty sure I'm wrong about that, but they reinstated the old definition. The pre-Krummacher definition was reinstated. So reasonableness came back into play. But that's why we did the moratorium, because the Supreme Court had basically changed the definition of, well, it changed this, not the definition, it changed the standard you had to apply and made it much stricter.
Well, but I think that was reflected in how we changed our ordinance.
Well, yeah, your ordinance was, you adopted, what you did was, before the moratorium was lifted and after the state legislature changed the law, you adopted the new statutory definition.
As I understand, the moratorium was appealed to the state, and it went away. They
No, it didn't go, no. The Supreme Court took the initial statute, interpreted it, and indicated that the courts had been interpreting, the courts and municipalities have been interpreting it wrong. And so what the legislature did was, they took the old understanding, and made that part of the statute. So they basically changed the definition. And the moratorium was in place because we had to basically redo our ordinance to meet the new definition that the Supreme Court had mandated. And then, again, because this legislature changed it, we went back to the old way of operating. So basically, what happened was the old way of operating was thrown out and replaced by a new method of operation set by the Supreme Court. The legislature decided that given the long history of variances and the old interpretation, that they're simply going to change the statute so that the statute now conformed to the old definition, the old way of operating.
okay, now I'm confused.
Okay, okay. Let me try it one more time. Okay, for a number of years, the term of
I thought it was hardship.
hardship. Yes, I think it was hardship.
Was only granted under the term of
Definition.
hardship.
Yeah, the interpretation of what hardship meant
Right.
was one way. And then this Krummacher case came along, and the Supreme Court looked at the definition, what was the conventional definition of hardship, and said, no, you're interpreting the wrong way. Here's how hardship should be interpreted. It was a much more restrictive definition. The legislature decided that given the history of the definition of hardship that had been in place prior to Krummacher, that they're simply going to take the pre-Krummacher definition and make that part of the statute. That's what they did.
And that's where that reasonable use of the property came
Right.
in.
And
That's
that-
where we've been trying to at least slow down all these variances, especially around the lake. We've caught a lot of grief for some of the variances we allowed on Hero
Unfortunately,
Road because-
the lake area is, because of the age of the properties and the homes and that, it's a very unique situation with the property lines and buildings and so on. But
You've already got, looks like a neighbor's storage area right on the line, which doesn't help you either.
well, yeah, I mean, that's a lot of the area around lakes. That's the way. That's how it went. So, so to answer your question, as far as being able to move it east or west, with reviewing the plans, worst case scenario is I can go 7 feet from the setback, so I'm really into the setback by 3 feet.
So you could move the garage, so instead of that 5 foot, 5.5, it would be 7 feet?
Correct. And I have those drawings here with a
So you're moving it east somewhat?
east, almost 2 feet, correct. East. Yes.
Well, again, so 2 feet east, you still can you have your utility door? Is that what you're?
Without changing, correct. I'll meet that criteria, so, and it'll still be a doable project. I'm only 3 feet into the setback at that point.
It's this whole reasonable use thing.
Anything else? Yeah.
So as you know, this is not my strength, so please bear with me if I ask
Sure.
basic questions. But I was going to ask that question, which Steve just did. It's not going to impact, I see there's like a sidewalk that you have there from the existing deck into the existing garage. And would the idea that you just suggested be to potentially move the garage up to that sidewalk?
Well, it'd be close to it, yes.
Close to it?
Yes.
You wouldn't go over the
No.
sidewalk? Okay. And I know that there was comments from, where did it go? There was comments about impermeability.
Impervious surface.
Thank you. Would that still be an issue if you did move it a couple?
No, that would still meet the formula for the proper formula that you have to have for the square footage.
But if you were to move it, and just bear with me for a second, if you were to move it more than the couple of feet to get it totally out of the setback, then potentially there would be some impervious impact.
Correct.
Okay, and so then I guess that would be a question of, are we more concerned about the setback, or are we more concerned about the
Impervious surface.
the impervious stuff? I can't get that word out. So that would be, I guess, a question, but I think those were all that I had. Thank you.
How wide is the garage, the new proposed garage? It's 22 feet out. How wide?
13 feet,
13?
13?
if you scroll down a little bit.
Oh, all right. One thing the board will struggle with down the road, and which we try to help those guys out, but when we do this, it's a little bit of a precedent setting. So we're allowing this one, a year down the road, somebody's gonna look back and see this and say, I want the same thing. So we struggle with this to make sure that have rationale for this, and a lot of times we try to massage this so it only applies to you or to this property. So the next guy can't use that against us to want the same thing. Well, that's another issue that we're gonna struggle with on this one, but.
Mr. Chair, on that last point, you should know that variances that are, of variance granted in the past cannot be used, is not relevant to variances granted in the future. It's called the doctrine of due process, and the Supreme Court has made that clear, that what has happened in the past cannot be considered as, it's not a due process issue. Just to let you know that that is not a big problem, unless the only time you have to worry about that is if you had two variances of the same nature on the same night, you have to treat them consistently. Or if you had two variances of the same type within, say, 1 or 2 meetings of each other, you should be consistent. But really, you shouldn't worry about that, about precedence, because the doctrine of precedence doesn't really apply when it comes to variances.
Tell that, we're gonna make a big statement to the town residents, because they use it against us all the time.
That's the legal definition. Politically, practically, yes, I know your point is well taken.
All right, any other questions of the applicant?
No, not at this moment. Did you have some clarification? You said we'd talk about it later, why he's here. A good question for the applicant?
That was regarding the location movement, which
Movement.
we've been discussing, and
Well,
he clarified for us.
Obviously, this addition needs frost footings, correct? Because it's attached to the garage, which is attached to the house.
Correct.
So that water table issue is not affected by those, correct? A
That's,
high water mark?
that's
Right.
correct.
Okay. All right, thanks, sir. Is there anyone else here who wishes to speak to this? All right, hearing none, and with no other questions of the applicant, I need a motion to close the public comment portion.
I'll move to close the public comment portion of the hearing.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right, if there, any other questions of staff or the attorney? Otherwise, I would,
Well-
what's the board's pleasure?
Well, let me ask a question. So there was the applicant had made a comment that he is willing to move it over, not for what he requested, but further to the east, so that we have to look at that. Are we going to talk about it as if he requested, or as he just made a commentary that it could be moved a little bit?
Well, we have
I'm
two
not clear
options.
what I'm-
You can either approve what they're asking, or you can deny what they're asking, or you can make a recommendation to approve his second choice of moving it 2 feet.
Okay. So the reasonable use of the property, not granting this, it's still reasonable use of the property.
There's still a reasonable use of the property.
And so, in keeping with what we have been trying to do, there is no reason to issue the variance.
Because there is a reasonable use of the property.
Because there is a reasonable use of the property. Whether he moves it or not is not really relevant if it's still gonna have to have a variance. It's only when, no, I'm not gonna.
All right, so that's, Scott, what do you think?
I did drive by and look at it, and that is really tight between the two buildings. And you pointed out already that the neighbor's got one storage unit right on the line. And both of them seem to be pretty close to the lot. So any way that it could be moved further to the east, I would think would be better.
A lot of times, setbacks, originally, I believe, when we develop properties and you set setbacks, it's utility easements and it's also safety. Now, I know they've talked about fireproofing a building because it's too close to the next one, but you also got to be able to get something down between them. Now, years ago, they want to get a fire truck in there. A lot of these houses in the township, you can't do that. They're just too close. But like I said, when you have a full-size lot of a standard the township requires, it's a little tough to say, just because you want a third stall.
You know,
But, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No,
All right, what's the pleasure of the board?
well, I think in opposition to what the planning commission recommended, I propose that it be denied.
Do we have that finding of facts? I don't know what page that's on.
Did we unplug from that? I can pull up our resolution with the findings for denial in just a moment.
Actually, it's pages 99, 100, and 101 is the resolution for denial.
I think it's important that we have that as part of the minutes.
Well, actually, Mr. Chair, you should be adopting the resolution with the findings of fact.
Okay,
That staff, that TK has prepared for you.
all right, I just found it. So Steve, if that's your motion, you should probably include that.
I'll include that on page, where is it, 91, you say?
99,
Not
100,
quite
and
there
1.
yet.
Is it all right just to refer to the findings of fact?
Which I would suggest you do is the motion should be based on the findings of fact set forth in the resolution, proposed resolution. Actually, let me rephrase that. The motion would be to deny based on the findings of fact set forth in the proposed resolution.
That is correct. That's my motion.
All right, do I have a second?
I will second that.
All right, motion's made, second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Sorry, folks, I know sometimes we just have to draw the line on these things to slow these requests down, because we get a ton of them, and some of them are just, they're a little egregious. This one, it seems fair, but a third stall is almost I don't want to say a nice thing to have, but I rented stalls for a long time somewhere else because I couldn't get a bigger garage, so. But, thank you. All right, we're gonna move on. Item 8, we have new business, we have none. So 9 added agenda items, we don't. Also, number 10 is open time. If we got someone here for open time, it's your chance to come in front of the camera.
All right, you go first.
My name is Bob Leeper. I live at 2302 Fifth Court in Township. Two issues or two items for discussion. One would be when I was here the last time, there was talk about replacing Fifth Court Road. The asphalt is quite broken up, and the plan, I thought, was to have it replaced this year, and then it got pushed to 2025 because there had to be some plans, some rearranging of property lines and so forth. So I was trying to get an update where we are with that. Have we made any decisions? I haven't seen anybody out there surveying or looking at the property. I'll start with that.
Have you been in touch with Dale Reed, our Public Works Director, or not?
No.
Because you know Patrick offhand, if that,
The only thing that I know is what Mr. Leeper has said here is that it was moved to 2025. So I don't think there's been any survey out there since we've made that decision. But you might want to check with Dale what his plan is.
yeah, because I'm, you know what, we have so many road improvements going on, and a lot of times your road would be included with some other roads, and we rate all our roads from 1 to 5, and sometimes if the rating is marginal, it gets moved back, or funding, it might get moved back, so Dale would be the gentleman to talk
Is
to.
it Dale Reed?
Yes, Public Works Director.
And
Okay.
He's got a complete layout of all our road improvements, when they come up, when they're gonna be scheduled.
Okay. And the other issue that I have is, and I spoke of this the last time I was here, again, my address is 2302 Fifth Court. So at the end of Fifth Court, it ends in a T. I'm at the right, and there's 2286. I can't refer to it any other way than a junkyard. And the owners of this property have exceeded their 300 square foot limitations. They had multiple boats and vehicles and trailers in the yard and in their driveway. And over the last few months, they did get rid of a couple of the boats, but they replaced them with vehicles. So we haven't made any improvements there, and the piles of debris, wood, tires, batteries has increased. There's a house, a garage, and then a shed, and the piles of garbage have spilled out outside the shed. Between the garage and the shed is mounded. They can't even close their garage door all the way. When they try to, it closes at an angle because it's hitting all kinds of debris inside their garage, and it's spilling out into their driveway.
With that, with Mike?
I know we've talked about it with Mike because there are a few houses in that area that he's had conversations with folks. It wasn't on this last executive meeting. I don't see it listed, but I'm pretty sure he's had several conversations with the owners.
Because I think our building inspector is aware of it,
Yeah.
and he
Okay.
sent out some notices to the property owner.
Yeah.
Is one of these properties where they were doing oil changes in their driveway?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so we are aware of that?
Yep.
And going through the process that we have to follow to address those. And I can't say more than that because I wasn't at the last exec meeting, but I know we have discussed it with our
Okay.
building inspector.
I thought there had been improvements, so I'm surprised to hear that that's not in your opinion.
There was some improvements. Like I said, the boats that were here and there, half on the driveway, and then this one was all the way in the yard. They disappeared, and said, thank you. And then they were replaced a couple weeks later with other vehicles. And I know that when I read the minutes from the last time I was here, someone said that you don't know about these problems until someone like myself says something. So, and I looked up the definitions, and they are a nuisance, and we are looking to sell our property in the next year, maybe 2. And if you take a chance and drive down Fifth Court, you wouldn't offer $10,000 for my house because you have to drive by this. And there's other people in the neighborhood that have a surplus of trailers and boats and so forth. but it's set back, and I don't want to make a big stink with everybody. It's just, this one is just a disaster, and I appreciate your help.
It's on our radar, and the problem is, this is a process, you know, you can give them notices, and then you have to threaten legal action, and then you gotta threaten taking them to court, and I hate to say it, but they have rights.
Oh,
Not to be messy, but.
yeah.
I wouldn't apologize. They do have rights, but you have rights too.
Yeah.
You have to follow due process.
Okay.
And Mike gets to the point where he feels, I need to step in. He calls me and the board gives me direction. So we've done it in the past. So don't, it's not being ignored, I can tell you that much.
Not to be discouraging, but some of these have taken over 7 years to get through the system.
Well, thank you.
But really, I'm just saying, you got a timeline.
You got an open position on your side of the table? 'Cause-
I'm just telling you, these are not fast because it's Mike and he get involved and they have to go through the process. There is a lot of leniency given to people
Property rights are.
Property rights are a big deal.
Well, it's like evicting somebody. You can't just kick him to the street. You got to give him a notice. I get it.
I wish you could do it as an eviction, to be frank.
Yeah, and I guess I just wanted to be on record is that I'm just,
Appreciate it.
I'm staying with you, and hopefully you can keep up with that, and I appreciate your time.
Leave yet. Pat, it wasn't on Mike's list at the last executive meeting, and I guess I made the bad assumption that it was better, and he didn't feel it was worth bringing up, so I think it needs to be brought up again, so we can find out what his thoughts
So
are.
when I bring this up at staff meeting tomorrow with Mike, I'm sure it'll move to the executive committee for
Okay,
discussion.
because if it's not on the list, my hope is that things have improved, and he feels it's workable.
I think we addressed it at the December executive
Yes,
meeting.
and when it dropped off the last month, I thought, okay, progress. The second thing is, if you're thinking about selling in the next year-ish, the whole reason that the roads were not done on your street specifically, but also for that area, is that famous phrase that it's complicated. The area, the neighborhood, a lot of ups and downs and tight turns and narrow lanes and rights of way and so on. And so TKDA had to take a step back and take a much harder look at it in order to do it the right way. That's why it's not being kicked down the road. That's a bad term. It's not being delayed simply because we didn't want to get to it. It was to take a very thoughtful, strategic approach. There needed to be more time spent on it. Hopefully it'll still work with your time frame, but that's kind of the backstory. When you talk to Dale, he's going to have a better idea as to how that's moving along, I think.
Okay.
But that's just to give you some perspective of why it moved from here to there.
Yeah, it's a mess back there. Thinking back when it used to be
Maybe to
horse
your
and buggy,
advantage,
and
once the road is done, that's also gonna complicate their mess, because that's gonna have to be cleaned up too while we're doing the road. So hopefully with timing, when you go to sell your house, the road's done, which helps you sell, because it's gonna look nicer, and that may help expedite cleaning that mess up too.
very good. Thanks again.
Thanks, Bob.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right, White Bear Press.
Logan Guion, 12599 Europa Avenue North, Hugo, but the mailing address is White Bear Lake. Just a couple of clarifications for my own. What is Mike's last name? Just so I can spell it right in the notes. Johnson. Okay.
O-N.
Thank you, Johnson. And then secondly, Chair, you mentioned ash borer being a blight. I would just like to, if you could elaborate on that, because I'm not sure if our papers covered it.
Right now, emerald ash borer is gotten our full attention. We've taken down, how many trees, Patrick?
I don't even know. It's been a huge project over the last 2 or 3 summers.
And it's gotten a little bit out of hand, so it's really spreading. And it's sad to say, but we are losing a lot of trees in the town.
And we've taken the same approach with our property owners as we do with the township. We're not holding out our property and saying thou shalt take down yours, and we're addressing them. We have an arborist and staff that have been going out, as other communities have. White Bear Lake itself has been doing this. All the neighboring communities have aggressively been looking at it because it is still attacking whatever living ash trees there are. And so we're addressing it as fast as we can. They have to be removed.
And then we're looking at replacements,
Yes.
Yeah.
which is just a follow-up, so it's gonna be another process.
Good to know. Thank you.
Right?
Amen.
All right, seeing no one else?
I have one last item.
Oh, I'm sorry.
One last item.
Forgot.
I just want to remind everybody that tomorrow is primary day in Minnesota. It does not matter which party, it's everybody, it's all at the same date. And there is a change in the township as it relates to precinct 1. That is at Tamarack Nature Center versus Otter Lake School where it normally is because there was a scheduling issue. There also will be 2 other precincts at Tamarack Nature Center in the, I think it's in the gardening building out towards the front, because Otter Lake School has 3 precincts that vote there. Yes.
There's no way I can get that in time for the paper, but
Why?
will that,
Don't you have
right?
any poll?
I mean, short of stopping the trucks right now. But will that affect the general election in the fall? Will the locations change, or are they still where they're normally at?
I don't think so. Carter was made aware of this when he was here doing his presentation earlier to make sure that that's covered in the press for the general election also.
Well, as you may or may not know, Carter does not always communicate everything downstream. So
You know, you're on record on that.
I know I am.
You said it, I did not.
I have a hotter take. Not many watch the live stream.
All right.
All right, thanks. Anything else, Steve?
No.
Guy, got anything?
No.
All right, I need a motion to receive general material and supplements.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
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 I need a motion to adjourn at, time is it?
7:56.
Well, it's not, 7:56.
So move.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.